1929 versus 2008. The two great crashes. The Great Depression. Peak market drop, 89%. GDP collapsed 30%. Recovery took 25 years. Unemployment hit 25%. The 2008 financial crisis. Markets fell 57%. GDP dropped 4.3%. Recovery took 6 years. Unemployment reached 10%. 9,000 banks failed in the 1930s. Only 500 in 2008. FDR.com versus crypto. Bubble Brothers. The dot-com bubble of 2000. Nasdaq dropped 78%. $5 trillion destroyed. 48% of internet companies vanished. Recovery took 15 years. The 2022 crypto crash. Bitcoin fell 77%. $2 trillion in value evaporated. 67% of crypto projects died. Still recovering. Pets.com spent $12 million on a sock puppet ad. Then died. Bitcoin went from 69,000 to Weimar Germany versus Zimbabwe. Hyperinflation nightmares. Weimar Germany, 1923. Monthly inflation hit 29,500%. Bread cost 200 billion marks. The currency was destroyed. Triggered by war debt. Zimbabwe, 2008. Monthly inflation reached 79.6 billion%. Bread cost 100 billion Zimbabwe dollars. Currency also destroyed. Triggered by land reform. Germans burned money for heat. It was cheaper than wood. Asian crisis versus Euro crisis. Regional meltdowns. The 1997 Asian crisis. GDP collapsed 13% in Thailand. IMF bailout, $40 billion. 5 countries hit hard. Currencies dropped 40%. The 2010 Euro crisis. Greece's GDP fell 26%. EU bailout, $289 billion. 5 PIIGS countries affected. Trapped in the euro. Thailand's currency lost 40% in weeks. Greece's economy shrank 20%. Oil crisis 1973 versus oil crash 2020. When oil breaks the world. The 1973 OPEC embargo. Oil prices surged 300%. GDP dropped 3%. Triggered by an embargo. Gas was 39 cents a gallon, then spiked. The 2020 oil price war. Prices crashed 65%. GDP fell 3.4%. Saudi and Russia started a price war. Oil went negative $37 a barrel. In 1973, gas stations ran dry. Black Monday versus COVID crash. Speed of collapse. Black Monday, 1987. Markets fell 22.6% in one day. Total decline, 36%. Recovery took 2 years. The Fed cut interest rates. The COVID crash, 2020. Markets dropped 12.9% in one day. Total decline, 34%. Recovery took just 5 months. The Fed printed $5 trillion. Black Monday was the worst single day in market history. COVID crash was the fastest 30%. Tulip Mania versus NFTs, 385 years, same lesson. Tulip Mania, 1637. A single bulb cost 10 times an annual salary. Then crashed 99%. The bubble lasted just 3 months. Worth nothing today. The NFT crash, 2022. One NFT sold for $69 million. Market crashed 95%. Bubble lasted 2 years. Most worth nothing today. A single tulip bulb cost more than a house in Amsterdam. Beeple sold an NFT for $69 million. Argentina versus Greece. Sovereign default twins. Argentina, 2001. Debt, $132 billion. GDP collapsed 11%. Unemployment hit 21%. 800,000 people left the country. Greece, 2015. Debt, $320 billion. GDP collapsed 26%. Unemployment hit 27%. 400,000 left the country. Argentina defaulted 9 times in its history. A world record. Soviet Union versus Venezuela. When empires collapse. The Soviet collapse, 1991. GDP dropped 40%. Inflation hit 2,500%. 25 million people displaced. Oil was 60% of GDP. Venezuela's collapse, 2016. GDP dropped 75%. Inflation reached 1.7 million%. 7.7 million people fled. Oil was 95% of exports. The Soviet Union had the world's second largest economy. Japan 1990 versus China 2023. Real estate time bombs. Japan's lost decade. Property crashed 80%. Stock market fell 80%. Debt reached 250% of GDP. Population aging fast. China's slowdown. Property down 30% and falling. Stocks dropped 40%. Debt hit 300% of GDP. Population aging even faster. Japan's imperial palace was worth more than all of California. China has 65 million empty apartments. Mexican peso versus Turkish lira. Currency meltdowns. Mexico's peso crisis, 1994. Currency dropped 50%. Inflation hit 52%. Bailout, $50 billion from the US and IMF. Interest rates spiked to 70%. Turkey's lira crisis, 2021. Currency dropped 80%. Inflation reached 85%. No bailout. Interest rates kept at just 14%. Mexico got the largest bailout in history at the time. $50 billion. South Sea bubble versus Enron. Fraud of the century. The South Sea bubble, 1720. Peak value, $4 trillion in today's money. Crashed 95%. Government corruption fueled it. Led to the Bubble Act. Enron scandal, 2001. Market cap reached $70 billion. Crashed 99.7%. Corporate accounting fraud. Led to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Isaac Newton lost $4 million in the South Sea bubble. Enron executives sold $1 billion in stock before the crash. Nixon shock versus Draghi's bazooka. The words that changed everything. The Nixon shock, 1971. Killed the gold standard. Dollar dropped 30%. Gold went from $35 to $850. Created floating exchange rates. Draghi's bazooka, 2012. Saved the euro from collapse. Euro had dropped 20%. Gold was irrelevant. Launched massive bond buying. Nixon killed the gold standard on a Sunday night TV broadcast. Draghi said 3 words, whatever it takes. 1970s stagflation versus 2022 inflation. Inflation returns. U.S. stagflation, 1970s. Inflation peaked at 14.8%. Unemployment hit 9%. The Fed raised rates to 20%. OPEC oil embargo was the trigger. 2022 U.S. inflation. Inflation peaked at 9.1%. Unemployment was only 3.5%. Fed raised rates to 5.5%. Russia's invasion disrupted energy. Volcker raised rates to 20%. Brexit versus trade war. When allies break apart. Brexit, 2016. GDP impact, -4%. Trade lost, $50 billion per year. Pound dropped 15%. Still ongoing. US-China trade war, 2018. GDP impact, -0.5%. Trade disrupted, $150 billion per year. Yuan dropped 10%. Still ongoing. Brexit cost the UK 4% of GDP. That's $100 billion per year.